As you learn chemistry, there are a number of techniques you will need to learn about, understand, and even be able to carry them out. One such technique is titration. So, what is titration? Titration is a technique used to determine the unknown concentration of a given solution using a solution whose concentration is known. During titration, the exact volume of a solution whose concentration is unknown required to react with a given volume of a solution whose concentration is known is determined. Volume obtained can be used in calculations to determine the unknown concentration. In this video, we are going to learn how to carry out a titration where we shall titrate 0.4 molar sodium hydroxide with aqueous hydrochloric acid of unknown concentration. So what do we require to carry out this titration? The first thing you need are the solutions that are going to react. And the first one is sodium hydroxide, 0.4 molar hydrochloric acid, a burette. And a burette is a piece of apparatus that can help us to measure the exact volume of hydrochloric acid, a pipette, and the pipette will help us to measure the required volume of sodium hydroxide. Alongside the pipette, we shall require a pipette filler, a conical flask, a beaker, a small filter funnel, and a retort stand. And last but not least, we shall require an indicator. In this case, we are going to use methyl orange indicator. So we should start by setting up the apparatus and materials in readiness for the titration. Now, you first clamp the burette onto the retort stand in such a way that the graduated side of the burette is facing you, so that you don't have trouble going round to take your reading. Pour a small amount of acid using the filter funnel in the burette and open the tap so that the acid goes into the beaker underneath until the tip of the burette is filled, and also to ensure that there is no airlock. With the help of funnel, you continue adding the acid until the zero mark. The next step is to transfer 25 cubic centimeters of sodium hydroxide into the conical flask. So this is our sodium hydroxide, 0.4 molar, and we want to fill the pipette using the pipette filler. You lower the tip of the pipette in the solution, slowly press on the ball of the pipette filler, and the solution slowly rises until it fills the bulb. After the bulb, ensure it moves until the mark on the pipette, which will help us to deliver the exact volume. You can see the mark, it has passed a little bit, so I will reduce until the meniscus sits on the mark. There we go. We can transfer that to the conical flask. One thing I want you to note is that about a drop of the liquid remains at the tip of the pipette. This pipette is designed to deliver exactly 25 cubic centimeters. So you don't need to force this drop that remains at the tip. The next thing is for us to add 2 to 3 drops of indicator. 2, 3. So you swirl the mixture to allow the indicator to mix well with the sodium hydroxide. You can see the color is orange yellow. The next step is you place a white tile under the burette and place the conical flask under the tip of the burette. You will also require a table of titration readings. You should have this table ready so that as you carry out the titration, you can record the readings. You are required to have a minimum of 3 titrations. We have the initial burette reading. This is the reading you are starting with. We shall indicate 0 at this point. Then after you have done the titration, the final burette reading, you will indicate it in this space. The difference between the final reading and the initial reading will be indicated in this space. This will be the volume of the acid required to react with 25 cubic centimeters of sodium hydroxide. We are now ready to carry out the titration. But before you start, record the initial reading of the acid in the table of readings, like this. So as you can see, the first titration number 1 and the initial burette reading is 0.00. It is important to record your readings to 2 decimal places. Hold the conical flask with one hand, and with the other hand, you manipulate the burette tap. You open the tap and slowly add the acid. For this first titration, your eyes should remain on the conical flask, because it is at that point you want to see the color change. You can see the color has changed. Close the tap and take your reading. In this case, it is 20.3. And so you record that, and you can get the exact volume by subtracting the initial burette reading from the final burette reading. And in this case, it will be 20.30 subtract 0.00. And the volume therefore is 20.30. This volume is referred to as the titer. Pour the resulting solution down the sink and rinse the conical flask. Repeat the steps above for the second titration number. You open the tap and slowly add the acid up to 38. Now you start adding drop by drop. Close the tap and you take the reading. The reading this time is 40.10, and you indicate that. So therefore our table looks like this. For the second titration, the final volume is 40.10, and the initial reading was 20.30, and the volume of the acid used is 19.80. Now for the third titration, you notice that we have used about 40 cubic centimeters of the acid, and yet we require about 19.8 cubic centimeters. So this means we have to refill, because we are remaining with about 10 cubic centimeters in the burette. Can you refill? So let's start from 10. And with the third titration, you open the tap and slowly add the acid up to around 28 cubic centimeters. You add drop by drop as you shake. So the titer for the third titration is 19.70. And in the next video, we shall use these readings to determine the unknown concentration of the acid.